Hello beautiful people. Besides the new top tier vehicles and locations of the Sky Guardian update, quite a bit of smaller changes and vehicles have been introduced, and I thought I would go over some of them in this video. And a little disclaimer, what I am going to mention here is only a small portion of the complete changes, and I'm only highlighting what I find interesting and more importantly in the brackets that I myself play in. So for all the high tier stuff, you should find another YouTuber. First off, at battle rating 4.3, Britain has received the Churchill NA75. My guess is that the name refers to the gun, meaning North American 75mm, but that's just my guess. It sits between the battle rating 4.0 Mark III and the battle rating 4.7 Mark VII. The very cool thing about this Churchill is the gun. It's basically the same gun used on the regular Sherman. Now it's nothing fantastic penetration wise, but at battle rating 4.3 it will get the job done. But new for the Churchills is the fact that it now can use an armor-piercing high explosive shell, and that is pretty awesome. The post-spin damage of the British solid shells is not the greatest nor most reliable, but this Churchill will remedy that. I'm a big fan of this vehicle, and for me personally this is the best vehicle in the update. A bit of bad news are for the Walker Bulldogs, the M41A1s. They had their turret rotation nerfed from 36 to 24 degrees a second, and that is close to a 30% nerf, so that bad hit them pretty hard. The Soviet T-34-100 had its ammo capacity reduced from 50 to 30 shells, so that's also quite a bit. I guess you can argue that spending 30 shells plus in a match is pretty rare anyhow, unless you do some long-range sniping. The two tiny Soviet milk trucks, the two Gas AAA and Gas MM, had their gear ratio changed. This means that they can now go, instead of the previous 45 km an hour, 65 and 70 km an hour respectively, so there's some more fun to be had there for sure. The Soviets at battle rating 6.0 has received a very deadly new SPAG, the M54/59 Praga. It's not of Soviet origin though, it's Czech. The vehicle has twin 30mm cannons with a pretty crazy armor penetration of 91mm at 10 meters and 75mm at 500 meters. The shells also are very fast with 1000 meters per second. The vehicle's main drawback is that it is wheeled, lightly armored and quite underpowered, so even smaller hills can provide a challenge for it. The Praga is, however, not only a deadly SPAG, but also a deadly tank destroyer. I've destroyed a Sherman from its side at around 900 meters distance. With the new additions, Russia now has the deadliest SPAG lineup of any nation. Some of the updates, besides the new vehicle, include a bug fix for all the M13 and M16 SPAG. Now the ammo rack can detonate, and I have tested out myself. You can definitely now ammo rack the poor things, and they will blow up in a glorious fashion. On the plus side for another SPAG, the French MX-13 DCA had its turret rotation guidance changed from plus 30 to a whopping 90 degrees a second, and its vertical guidances changed from 30 to 45. That is a huge change with 3 times its previous rotation speed. And I would say though that the 90 degrees is with an 8 screw, it is still a huge change just with a regular or expert crew. The German 21cm rockets used on the Bf-110s and some fight aircraft can now be fired one at a time, and this is a welcome change for sure. They will still be more difficult to aim with on the Bf-110s due to them being angled upwards, since they were used against bombers on those aircraft. Why they're not angled upwards for the fighters in-game, I do not know, since they were historically as far as I know. The rear gunner for the Stuka models have received some love with slightly better traverse and elevation. Guardian has also added secondary weapon customizations for a new number of aircraft, so something to go check out to see if you can make a bomb load to your liking. More aircraft able to drop napalm bombs have been added. including some German World War II aircraft like the Bf-109, Focke-Wulf 190s, Heinkel 111s, and both of the Ju-88s. The Bf-110 should also have received some balancing, and according to Gaijin, this means that it should be easier to exit from a dive at low altitudes. At speeds in a shallow dive, the Bf-110s can compress pretty easily, and you can easily just end up in a fireball on the ground. So it's going to be welcome if you can actually see a change for this. All the Soviet Su-2 low-tier aircraft now has an engine fire extinguishing system added. So good for them. The British Beaufighters have received an upgrade, which makes them much deadlier for ground lobby, and you might want to take them out again for a spin. They can all carry bombs now, and it's not a small bomb load either. The first of the Beaufighters can maximum drop 2 500-pound bombs, while the other two can drop 4 500-pound bombs, 2 1,000-pound bombs, and some other bomb loads. And speaking of bombs, I'm sure you've seen by now, both British Lancasters can now drop 2 new bombs, one weighing 9,000 pounds and the new biggest bomb in the game, 12,000 pounds. This also means that the Soviet Fab 5000 has been dethroned. The king is dead. Long live the king. Another cool little vehicle which I love is Lieutenant Gruber's little tank. And that is a reference to the British comedy show called Allo Allo, which I love to watch. The vehicle itself is the German SDKFZ 222 at battle rating 1.7, and it shares salt with Squeeze Boy, the SDKFZ 221. And it's not only the Germans who get access to this new vehicle, so does the Chinese. Of note here is the new turret and weaponry it has. It now has a 20mm cannon and coax MG. Oddly enough, this is not a light scouting vehicle, a light tank, but Gaijin made it into an anti-aircraft vehicle, which I think is pretty weird, but I certainly appreciate. Now I appreciate it not for the obvious reason, but for the turret itself. The turret is also found on the Puma with a 20mm cannon, the SDKFZ 231/1 from an event, and the little premium SDKFZ 140/1. Now on both the Puma and the 140, the same turret previously used to have a god-awful turret rotation with about 10 or 12 degrees a second. Now however, Gaijin changed the turret rotation to match the new SDKFZ 222. This means that the base turret rotation is now 28 degrees a second and with an 8 screw 40 degrees a second. So if you happen to own the Puma or the 140 or both of them like I do, you do not just have one new SPAG, you got 3 of them. So thank you Gaijin. And I'm sure you have noticed this by now, the ammo type of which you have been killed with or are killing with is now displayed in-game. Gaijin has also added customization for the hit indicator for ground vehicles. You can change the size, display time and position on the screen. You can find the options in the combat settings for ground vehicles. Those were some of the changes I myself found interesting and of use, but you should go check out all the changes yourself in the full list. And again, what I've mentioned is the brackets I play in myself. But that was about it. Until next time, remember to deploy your dive brakes. Have a good one.